Hi guys, I just wanted to say thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this part, and leave a like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Let's get going. We join Ash the night before he begins his journey. He's watching a reward ceremony where a new and up-and-coming trainer had earned a right to take on the Elite Four and to try and earn the right of championhood. However, before he does this, he announces that he will be taking some time off to train and prepare, while also visiting an old friend of his. With that, Ash stays up watching some Pokemon battles before sleeping in late, dreaming of starting his adventure and which starter Pokemon he wants to choose. Once waking up, however, the boy is fast to realise he is late and he is overslept by a large margin. As quick as a flash, Ash is running out of his own home, racing towards Professor Oak's lab, but getting towards the entrance gate, he runs into Gary, who looks stunned and a little shocked. All he does is turn and stare towards Ash, looking him up and down before asking what makes him so special. Ash is confused, but Gary leaves before he has a chance to ask any questions or figure out what Pokemon Gary picked. Like that, he's leaving in his car with his cheerleading squad following behind him. With that encounter having happened, Ash rushes into Oak's lab, where he sees the professor talking to the man on television from last night, the trainer who is going to try and take on the Elite Four and become champion, the trainer known as Kukui. Both Oak and Kukui notice Ash's arrival, causing Kukui to smile brightly, as Ash is starstruck. Not being able to form words, he's in a shocked state at meeting someone who's worthy to face the Elite Four, someone who he's watched throughout his entire journey to become a champion. Ash has watched all of his gym battles, any of his league battles, anything he could to watch this trainer. He's incredible and Ash wants to battle him, and Ash wants to be like him, but all he can think right now is, why is he here? And luckily for Ash, Professor Oak breaks the silence, welcoming Ash and introducing his fellow professor, Kukui. The man happily walks forward, stretching out his hand saying hello. However, Ash struggles to get his words out, but manages to introduce himself while shaking Kukui's hands. But in a weird moment, Kukui laughs, saying that he already knew the boy's name. Ash can't believe it. The person worthy to be a champion knew his name? How? That's really weird. And Kukui tells the boy that he knew his father, and he's actually here to return a favour. Ash is even more confused as he looks over to Professor Oak. The professor thinks back. As we look back a few months ago, Professor Oak is finalising some things for the trainers that are going to leave Pallet Town in only a few months, which is when Professor Kukui shows up. The man apologises for showing up without warning. However, he wanted to ask some questions. Oak, being curious and interested to talk to Kukui, of course accepts, as Professor Kukui then goes on to ask about the trainers leaving Pallet Town. He wants to know things about them, things like their name, their personality, their family members, anything of the sorts really. Oak is caught off guard, but decides to answer the fellow professor's questions, telling Kukui about his grandson first, Gary, about how he's a very confident trainer, with a lot of great potential, however he's very arrogant. The other two trainers are spoke about in short moments, and finally, the name Ash Ketchum is brought up. At the sound of the name, Kukui's face lights up, and he smiles almost uncontrollably. As he takes a minute to collect himself, he asks Oak for another favour, and this one catches the professor more off guard than anything else. Cut back to our current time, as Ash is still confused at how Professor Kukui knows him, as Professor Oak looks towards Ash, telling him that the other professor had showed up a few months ago at his lab, and asked if he himself could sponsor you, Ash. Ash looks towards Kukui confused, but the Alolan native just smiles, saying how he wanted to gift Ash his starter, Pokédex, and wanted to travel alongside him for a short while to help the boy become the best trainer he possibly could. Ash glows with excitement. He can't believe his luck, asking if both men are serious. As Oak nods his head, Ash looks towards Kukui, asking why a trainer worthy of being champion wants to waste his time on him. He doesn't know a lot about Pokemon. As Kukui tells Ash that he's already told him that answer, he actually owes his father a favour, so he's here checking it in now, and he thought this would be the best way to pay it off. Ash cannot believe his lucky stars. He's almost dancing with joy, but then something clicks. If Kukui is providing him with a starter, will he not be getting one of Squirtle, Bulbasaur or Charmander? Which is something he even asks Kukui. The man just smiles and nods lightly. He explains to Ash as he pulls out a Pokeball from his back pocket, telling him that the Pokemon inside this ball is a starter from his home region. The Pokemon inside has been bred just for Ash, from one of Kukui's very own Pokemon. Ash can't believe it as he quickly takes the Pokeball out of Kukui's hands and stares at it, wondering what amazing Pokemon could be inside. And as he summons forth the Pokemon inside, a small black and red cat appears in front of the boy. It looks around a little bit, causing Kukui to tell Ash that the Pokemon in front of him is known as Litten, and the pre-evolved state of his ace Pokemon. Ash, having followed Kukui's journeys, knows of his ace Pokemon, the big red Pokemon. It's incredibly strong and is a fire type, but that's all he really knows about it. As Litten looks around, Ash and it finally lock eyes. With Ash's eyes full of excitement, the fire cat can't help but stare back at Ash, who introduces himself, announcing how him and Litten are going to be best of friends. Hearing this, Litten begins to bounce enthusiastically, roaring out before it jumps into Ash's chest. The two hug for a moment before they begin playing with one another, both Pokemon and trainer clearly bonding straight away. Both Professor Oak and Kukui can't help but watch happily, as Kukui turns to his bag, pulling out a Pokédex Oak has never seen before. The man was already caught off guard by the little fire cat in front of him, wanting to know more about it. However, this Pokédex looks really different and seems strange, and Oak can't help but stare at it. Before he asks Kukui about the weird looking Pokédex, Kukui chuckles, explaining that what he's looking at is a prototype for what he plans to call the Rotom Dex. However, it's nowhere near finished yet, and this is just a basic version, which only has data on every region that Kukui himself has been to. However, in the future he plans to infuse a dex much like this one in design, to have the Pokemon known as Rotom. Inside it, it will power up the Pokédex and also give Rotom a free place to live, while making the Pokédex just an overall more interesting item to use. Oak is interested in the idea of a Rotom Dex, and tells Kukui if he ever needs help working on the machine, he would happily lend him a hand. Kukui thanks the Professor, telling him he is very likely to take him up on that offer. However, at this very moment in time, his main priority is to get Ash to be the best young trainer he can possibly be. However, whenever he's got a bit of free time, he'll travel back and go into everything in more detail with Oak if he would like. The man is upset and swallows this feeling, telling Kukui he would happily take him up on that offer. And also, if he ever needs a place to store any of his unique Alolan Pokemon, always feel free to drop by. Oak is deeply interested in Litten, however he's letting Ash play with the new Pokemon, but he has been staring up and down and taking a few notes every now and then. With Ash and Litten finishing playing, Kukui tells them that they should really start getting ready to begin their journey. Ash agrees as he recalls Litten, thanking it for playing with him, and Oak gets ready to see the pair off. He wishes the best of luck to both of them, telling Ash to give everything he's got, and telling Kukui to pop by and visit any time he likes, or telling the man he'll be cheering him on during his Elite Four battles. Kukui thanks him as Ash and Kukui leave, the pair having been wished the best of luck on their journey. As the duo leave, the pair get to the gate of Professor Oak's lab, where they begin to talk to one another briefly, which is when Ash's mother Delilah shows up, handing Ash a backpack, his hat, and some clothes. Ash thanks his mother as the woman tells her son to get ready. Delilah had heard from Professor Oak that Kukui will be sponsoring her son, and has read up about him a little bit and watched some of his battles. She's happy to see that the man, for the most part, seems to have pure intentions and seems to be a good man. However, she wants to speak to him a little bit in person right now. So she speaks to him briefly, and wants to know what he plans to do to help Ash. And once learning all of this, she thanks him, asking him to keep her son safe, before seeing them off and wishing them the best of luck on their journey. The pair soon hit the road. Within moments of leaving Pallet Town, Ash is bombarding Kukui with all sorts of questions on battling Pokemon, how Kukui knows his father, and Kukui is happy to see Ash so enthusiastic, and he decides going into a great deal of detail about some of his battles against the Cantonian gym leaders, and decides to speak about his battle against the Pewter City Gym, how the boy, for such a young man, had such a powerful Onix and an incredible team. However, even at a type disadvantage, his Incineroar was more than enough to overpower the Pokemon and easily win the gym. Ash cheers out with excitement, wanting to have a cool gym battle like that, and then asks Kukui something which shocks the man. What does he mean by type disadvantage? Kukui looks shocked, asking if Ash doesn't know anything about the type matchups, but the boy shakes his head. Kukui now realises that he's in over his head, but isn't going to turn away. Putting his hand to his chin, he begins pondering his next move. Originally, he had planned to do some sparring with Ash and Litten, just to get them to bond and also teach them how to fight, and then maybe help them catch their first Pokemon. However, if Ash doesn't understand the very basics of Pokemon, he needs to set a new goal. Thinking over his next few moves carefully, he thinks things out a little bit, before eventually coming up with a plan he likes. He tells Ash that their main goal for today will be to make sure that Ash understands the type matchup chart as well as he can. While doing so, they will keep walking towards Viridian City. Once arriving, he'll give them a rundown of how Pokemon Centers work, and also they will have a small practice battle to help Ash and Litten bond before resting up for the night and heading on towards Pewter City. Hearing this, Ash nods, as Kukui starts debriefing Ash as they walk all the way down Route 1. The boy tries his hardest to take everything in his mentor is saying, but has a hard time absorbing absolutely everything. However, by the end of the day, by the time they make it to Viridian City, Ash understands the type matchups a lot better than he did before. It's not absolutely perfect, and he does forget things here and there. However, the basics are at least nailed into his head. Fire is strong against grass, grass is strong against water, water is strong against fire, and many more basic combinations. However, Kukui knows that the best way for someone to learn, especially someone like Ash, will be throughout battle, and he'll learn it more and more as he continues on his journey. So, with the two making it to Viridian City, they check into the Pokemon Center. Kukui gives a basic understanding of how everything works in here, but Ash seems to have got that pretty fast. So, the two head round back of the center, more importantly, to the battlefield. Here, Kukui tells Ash that not everything comes down to type advantage. Sometimes a trainer being more creative or the Pokemon just being better well trained can be the bigger factors in a battle. Sometimes a strong grass type can beat a weak fire type. That's how the world works. So, to always make sure your Pokemon are trained up and you have interesting ideas kept in your head. Ash, hearing this, thinks he can do both of them, as Kukui tells him that they'll just be doing a practice spar here. He won't be attacking back, and it'll just be to see how he and Litten will fight. So, Kukui grabs a Pokeball from his back pocket and calls forth a weird looking bird Pokemon. Ash quickly grabs his Pokedex and learns that this Pokemon is called Braviary. It's Pokemon from the region of Unova and is incredibly strong. Ash can see this though, just from how it stands. He's amazed at this and decides to summon forth his starter Pokemon in Litten. The little cat Pokemon appears on the battlefield. Looking around and seeing Ash, he runs towards his trainer, wanting to play like they had done before. However, Ash tells Litten that now is not the time, pointing towards Braviary behind him. The Pokemon looks a little confused before soon figuring everything out, turning its attention towards Braviary. Kukui tells Ash that he can take the first few moves. After all, this is just a spar to see how well Litten and Ash work together. Ash thanks Kukui as he reads over Litten's moves before calling for an Ember. The Pokemon responds by jumping upwards and firing off a few small Ember attacks fly towards Braviary. The bird Pokemon doesn't do anything as Kukui tells him to stop the attack. The bird lifts its wing up and smacks the flame straight out of the air, putting them out and stopping the attack cold. Ash and Litten both think this is incredible, but both refuse to give in. Ash, trying to keep some momentum, calls for a scratch as Litten runs forward, getting right in front of Braviary, jumping upwards, doing multiple spins, and then slashing down towards the Pokemon. Braviary sits there and takes the attack as Litten lands on the ground, doing a small little pose after successfully landing the scratch attack. Kukui notices this and wonders if Ash has as well. So, he tells his student to keep coming at him, as Ash and Litten continue their battle against Braviary. Even against overwhelming odds, Ash doesn't give in, using multiple variations of Scratch and Ember, while Litten responds using moves in a really weird way. After about 10 minutes of battling, Kukui feels as if he now knows where Ash and Litten's skills are, so he calls for the sparring session to be over. Allowing a very tired Litten to rest, Kukui thanks Braviary, who had only blocked and took attacks, and thanks him for being so patient. The bird preaches out as it's recalled to its Pokeball. Ash praises Litten for giving it everything it had, as the Firecat Pokemon gives Ash a small lick on the face, causing the trainer to laugh as he recalls his Pokemon. Kukui calls Ash over, telling him that was a good battle, and he praises him for not giving up. However, he has a few things he wants to go over with Ash. So, he wants to sit down and speak about it. Ash agrees as the pair sit outside. Kukui then asks Ash if he noticed anything weird about the way Litten moved during the battle. Ash thinks it over before nodding, saying how he thought Litten was moving slightly strange, but he assumed that was normal for how Pokemon fights are supposed to be. Kukui tells Ash that he is partly right. However, it seems Litten likes being a little flashy while it's battling, doing unnecessary movements like poses and spins. Ash thinks back to when the little cat had done a scratch attack against Braviary. Thinking it over for a second, he remembers the Pokemon posing, and then worriedly asks if Litten being flashy is a bad thing. Kukui looks at his student shaking his head, telling Ash that it will only ever become a bad thing if Ash allows it to. This confuses Ash, but before he has a chance to ask too many questions, Kukui's moving on, and he points out some other mistakes made during the battle, this time more of an issue with Ash. He points out to Ash that he had only used Ember and Scratch throughout the battle, and this is actually a mistake, as Litten has access to two very good other moves in Fake Out and Growl. The first move will cause the Pokemon he uses it on to flinch up and allow him to get another attack in, whereas the other will weaken a Pokemon's attacking power, so if a stronger Pokemon is to get hit by this, it will level the playing field a little bit. However, Ash never used either of them. The trainer hearing this hangs his head low, having been humbled throughout the day about his knowledge on type matchups, anything to do with Pokemon, and more importantly battles. However, Kukui tells the kid he will never grow if he doesn't make mistakes, so that's why he's here, to make sure that these mistakes are pointed out to him before big important battles. This way Ash can thrive in this world, and he'll only ever learn if he makes mistakes. After all, everyone needs a helping hand every now and again. Explaining to Ash that a stranger years ago helped him master a move, and if he had never met that man, he would have never gotten to where he is today. So tells Ash not to worry, and to learn from every mistake he makes. Ash lifts his head up and smiles confidently, telling Kukui he promises he will. After this is said, the two head off to get a meal and rest for the night. Ash can't help but sit there, awake at night, mixed of a little bit of excitement of beginning his journey, but also the words of Kukui echoing through his head, that only he could let Litten's flashiness become a problem, wondering what that means. After being up for a few minutes, the boy realises he's going to struggle to sleep tonight, so he heads outside to get some fresh air. The boy calls out his Litten to spend some time with the Pokemon. However, once he makes it outside, he catches Kukui training with his Pokemon. He sees multiple Pokemon he's never seen before, some of which he has. The Pokemon Braviary is one which sticks out to him. However, the biggest and most impressive one is Kukui's ace Pokemon, Incineroar. Ash and Litten recognise this as Litten's final evolved form. They both watch Kukui's team train hard, and Ash and Litten can't help but watch with glee, both excited watching the training. Litten is more importantly amazed at the sight of his final form, showing off some amazing moves in a cool, amazing way, with some great power. Litten thinks to itself how it wants to be that strong, as both trainer and Pokemon look at one another with determination. For a moment it is as if Ash can understand Litten without it speaking any words. Ash tells Litten that he is one day going to be the world's strongest Pokemon trainer, so it only makes sense the world's strongest trainer would have the world's strongest partner Pokemon. So asks Litten if he's ready to become the world's strongest. Litten roars out before licking Ash's face once again, causing the boy to laugh before lifting up his Pokemon. He stares it down with a bright smile on his face before going to a bit of a serious look, wondering how he can get over Litten's flashiness. But having calmed down, the pair head off to get some sleep. The next day rolls around, and Kukui and Ash are getting up bright and early to depart town. Walking past the Viridian City gym, however, Ash sees that there's a lot of police tape there, wondering what's happened before looking to his mentor to ask some questions. But all he sees is Kukui's angry face, and it's quite a scary one at that. The man stares down the building, clearly deep in thought, as Kukui thinks to himself back to that day, back to one of the most intense and hard-fought battles of his life. But it was also the most influential battle for all of Kanto, and Kukui managed to come out on top. Ash speaks up, snapping Kukui back into reality. As the man apologised, he just got lost in thought thinking back to the fight he had against that gym leader. Ash asked curiously what happened. After all, he couldn't really find that fight anywhere to watch. He had watched most of Kukui's league battles and a few of his gym ones, but hadn't ever seen that final battle. Kukui explains that the battle wasn't all that interesting. However, the old gym leader quit not long after he defeated him, so the league is trying to sort out a new gym leader for now. But that means the gym is closed for a little while. Ash is confused but doesn't think much of it, as the pair leaves Viridian City heading towards Viridian Forest. After walking for a small while, they set up shop outside of the forest, as Kukui wants to put Ash through a small bit of training before they get any closer to Pewter City, and this is just going to be a good chance for Ash and Litten to bond. So, putting them through some light workouts, helping them master their moves a bit more. All the while, Ash tries to stop Litten from being so flashy while it fights, trying to point out that posing and all these spins are just a waste of energy. But the Pokemon either doesn't get it or doesn't listen, as it continues to do its flashy and fun fighting style. This is concerning for Ash, as he doesn't want to let Kukui down, All the while, Kukui already knows the answer for Ash, but knows not to tell him. It's a lesson he's going to have to learn for himself, and it will help define him as a trainer. After continuing their training for a small while, Litten shoots off a rogue ember, which flies off into the forest, hitting a tree, and then the sound of buzzing can be heard, as an angry Beedrill rockets out of the forest, flying straight towards Litten. Preparing an X-Scissor attack straight towards Litten, Ash quickly gets in front of his Pokemon, blocking it for the Fire Cat. Both Litten and Kukui are shocked, as Kukui goes to grab a Pokeball to battle the Beedrill. Ash tells his mentor to wait, asking if him and Litten could battle this. Kukui is shocked, but Litten and Ash both look determined. But the look in Ash's eyes catches Kukui off guard. That look, that smile, that face looks all so familiar to him. It confuses him and causes him to nod slightly. Ash tells Litten to get ready for battle as the Fire Cat Pokemon jumps forward. Ash already knows that Beedrill must be a really strong Pokemon based on the X-Scissor attack he just took, so he has to play smarter here and play to his type advantage. Ash decides to make the first move, calling for a Fake Out. Litten jumps from left to right before pouncing forwards and clapping its paws directly in front of Beedrill's face, stunning the Pokemon for a few seconds, allowing Ash to call for another move in Growl, as the small Fire Cat Pokemon lets out a bellowing roar, lowering Beedrill's attack stat. But the bug soon collects itself, buzzing forwards and jabbing Litten with a poison sting, knocking the Fire Cat backwards a few feet, but doing some serious damage. Ash calls out for his Fire Pokemon, who springs upwards. Ash smiles as he calls for a scratch, as Litten responds by jumping into the air, doing multiple spins and slashing along Beedrill's body, dropping into a pose. However, this attack does very little to hurt Beedrill, and the bug Pokemon, seeing an opening, swings its stinger towards Litten, hitting the cat with a Fury Cutter, knocking it backwards once again, but this time doing some more serious damage. Ash is worried about his partner Pokemon, who is now on the ground, picking itself up, but as it begins to pull itself up from the floor, patterns along its back begin to glow brightly, and its flames begin to emit from it. Kukui knows what this means and shouts out to Ash that Litten's ability is activated and for it to use fire-type moves. The trainer, hearing this, follows orders and calls for a blaze-boosted ember. Litten is quick to respond as giant balls of fire erupt from the small cat's mouth, hitting Beedrill directly and doing some serious damage, actually causing the bug-type Pokemon to lose its balance briefly. But before Ash can call for another move, and before Beedrill can collect itself, Kukui tells Ash to throw a Pokeball. Ash is confused, but Kukui tells him to trust him. Ash does so, throwing a Pokeball, hitting Beedrill right in the thorax, as the Pokeball shakes once, twice, and then a third time. As a small star bursts off it, Ash realises he's made his first ever Pokemon capture, and shouts out excitedly. He turns towards Litten, hugging the Pokemon, who is happy but also hurt. However, Kukui feeds it an Oran Berry, which helps heal it up, and Ash asks why Kukui told him to capture it, as Kukui explains that the Beedrill had demonstrated very powerful moves, and clearly was a powerful Pokemon of its species, and it would be a shame to see a Pokemon like that not reach its full potential. Ash, hearing this, thinks it over and agrees, as the pair decide that they should rest up here for the night, allowing Litten to get some rest, and also allowing Ash to try and bond with Beedrill. However, they plan to do that after having eaten something. With that all said, the two set up camp, and begin to settle in for a little bit. And that is where I'm going to leave this part for now. I hope people really enjoyed this part, and I want to give a huge thanks out to Pickle Dill, who helped me mostly come up with the idea for this what if. I had come up with it and pitched it towards him, and he gave me a lot of cool ideas for it, and I really appreciate it. So if you're here listening to this right now, man, you're awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope people enjoyed this part. This story is probably one of the stories I have most prepared for ever in my life, as unlike my what if Oak trained Ash, I actually have all of Ash's encounters planned out already, where they will have reached in their evolutionary lines and what points they'll evolve at, alongside where the story beats will be going, which is something normal I do for my what ifs. That all being said, I am really looking forward to doing this what if, as I have planned it out to the point where I know how this series already ends, which granted is something I do for a lot of my series. However, I didn't do it for what if Ash was sponsored by Oak. I had a vague idea of where I wanted the story to go, and I have a vague idea of where I wanted to end. It was very much an experimental series for me, as it doesn't divert too much from the main timeline, and I tried to give it its own little flair. However, I'm realising now I wish I had done some things differently in it. So for now, this might be the main Pokemon What If coming out on my channel, until I can gather another thought on where I want the series for What If Oak trained Ash to go. This all being said, I hope people enjoyed, and if you want to see more stories like this and the next part for this, please leave a like and leave me some suggestions in the comments. I'm not taking that out, that's really funny, and whoever listens to that, thank you. That all being said, have a lovely day guys, or a great afternoon, and I'll see you next time.